Hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Magdalena Yesil. Magdalena, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us more about your background?
Thank you very much for having me. I am both an entrepreneur and an investor. I have a decade as a venture capitalist with U.S. Venture Partners. I'm also the founder of Broadway Angels. Broadway Angels is either current venture capitalists or former venture capitalists, all of them investing their own money. It's not a fund, and we all happen to be women. I'm also an entrepreneur. I've founded 4 companies, currently doing my 4th startup in the auto finance space. My 3 startups prior to this went public, 2 of them in 94 and 96, and one of them got acquired. And the investment I'm best known for is that I'm the founding investor and founding board member of Salesforce, the CRM company.
Well, that really stands out as a major win. Can you tell us more about how that happened and how you got into that?
It happened like it always does. I happen to know the founder. The founder, Mark Benioff, and I had worked together. Actually, my second startup, CyberCash was providing electronic commerce infrastructure in enabling payments to come over the internet in a secure way between the consumer and the merchant. And we also had server software that resided in the banks. And Oracle, where Mark Benioff worked at the time, was one of my strategic partners. And Mark was my advocate. So that's how Mark Benioff and I got to know each other. Mark wanted to invest in my 3rd startup, but I sold the company, so he wasn't able to. And then when he had the idea that he wanted to bounce off of somebody who he trusted, he came to me. And that was the idea of Salesforce.
And so you were a board member for Salesforce for a while. How was that experience?
Right. I was there. I was on the board of that company for almost 6 years. It was fantastic. We were making a really we were building a very innovative product. We were making a major change in the software industry. The idea of enterprise software really moving from having a multi-million-dollar price tag to a price tag that anyone could afford. Salespeople could actually buy it using their own personal credit cards on a monthly basis. It was incredibly exciting. It was also incredibly challenging because the idea of cloud computing didn't exist. In fact, the word cloud didn't exist. Corporations putting their customer data on someone else's servers outside their firewall seemed to be just as crazy as putting people on Mars. And they were not willing to actually go for it. And CyberCash was not also able to raise any venture money. In fact, all the money that went into CyberCash was outside the venture capital industry.
Well, so if you look at your investments across the board, what's your investment thesis? What are you looking for beyond people that you know or good team? That's always a core part of it. But what else is there?
It was really a gift I could give the next generation by bottling all of this learning that we have had, our failures or successes, how we maneuvered some of the obstacles that were on our path, so that they can, by reading a book, which is easy to read, can have not just inspiration and motivation, but also some really practical tactics on how to, navigate the water.
And so who did you write it for? Was it for the upcoming CEO, or was it for everyone in the tech industry?
I really wrote it for a younger demographic. Now, I am baffled by the number of men who reach out to me on LinkedIn or even post Amazon reviews. I think Amazon book reviews, more than 50% are posted by men who have read it and have found it very useful themselves. And on LinkedIn, I probably have about 80% of the folks reaching out to me on Power Up who are male readers. So my initial audience I had in mind was much narrower, and it was younger women who were just starting out in their career and in the first decade, wanting, hungry for information, hungry for knowledge, hungry for advice. But it turns out, in fact, the lessons of, that the book has apply to people who are in their 40s or 50s or even sometimes older. One person wrote, I wish I'd read this book, 30 years ago, but still found it, helpful. And the nice thing that I think people who finish the book feel is a sense of hope and inspiration. And in this day of negative conversation, it's nice to hear news of how some of the women were able to really get themselves out of huge holes, really difficult situations, and be successful at the other end.
It seemed like one of the key elements you brought out in the book was getting the right team with you. And it seems like you have to surround yourself with the right people. How do you do that?
Well, always, right? I mean, we were limited in what we can do. We only have not 27 hours, 24 hours. I guess I think I have 27 hours. We have limited number of hours in a day, and you can only cut out of your sleep so much. So forming a great team, forming a team where you trust your teammates and they trust you is really key. But also surrounding yourself with a great boss, especially if you're early in your career, I think is paramount. That's probably the most important career decision you'll ever make. If you're an entrepreneur, surrounding yourself with really supportive investors who actually know what you're talking about, I think is truly important. Getting their support so that they ride the bad days with you as well as riding alongside you on the good days. And then creating a network of allies so that they're your eyes and ears when you're not there. These are peers usually who are watching out for you, who believe in your, strength and wants the best for you, the best success. And ideally, you're doing the very same thing for them as well.
Well, you also talk about joining the men's club and just not being afraid. You ignore the statistics and just go and be the best out there. How much do you think the problem is people that are just not taking that to heart and driving forward? And how much of it is you think it is an unlevel playing field out there?
Well, there's no question it's an unlevel playing field. I mean, let's face it, that's just the way it is. But the options are two. Either you opt out because it's unlevel and you take yourself out and you go home angry, or you stay in the game and are phenomenally good at what you do. And sooner or later, believe me, if you're really good, you're going to be included. So I always went for two without worrying about the fact that it was an uneven playing field. I knew that I was going to work twice as hard, 3 times as hard. Plus, I'm an immigrant, so I had no expectations. This wasn't my country. No one owed me a job. No one owed me anything. So if you walk in with that kind of attitude and you are humble and you are grateful, believe me, sooner or later, people actually want to hand things out to you.
Well, it seems like the thesis is you have to be brave enough to become the best person in the room. So you kind of put it back on the woman CEO to actually stand up and really drive forward for it. Because in the end, it's not the best woman or the best man, it's the best person that wins the job or the customer.
Absolutely. And it's not just, I didn't put it just on the female CEO, I also put it on the male CEO. I mean, let's face it, you should not be the best woman archaeologist or the best woman surgeon, oncologist. You should be the best oncologist, the best archaeologist, period. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It also doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are or what your gender choices are. It doesn't matter. You just have to really be good at what you do. And that's the basis of success.
What do you think about pitch contests and incubators that focus on women-led businesses? Do you think that it helps or does not help? Because they should really be out there among everybody trying to be the best of any pitch contest or any incubator.
Yeah, I think you said it. I actually talk about this in the book. I truly believe in cross-gender networking. Now, you might say, wait, if you believe in that, why did you found Broadway Angels? That's single gender. I also went to an all-girls school for middle school and high school, and I do believe that single-sex education is helpful to young women in their formative years. So there's a place for everything. But at the end of the day, we are going to compete in the world stage. And the world stage is co-ed. It's not single gender. So at some point, we need to graduate and say, if we're going to be the best, we have to be the best regardless of gender.
So as the Me Too movement and other movements come up that start to put things back out on the playing field like that, how do you think that helps the CEO, the woman CEO, actually achieve a more level playing field?
Well, I think what is the best that's happening with the Me Too movement or other movements is, first of all, we are opening a discussion in topics that we've never really wanted to talk about. That is absolutely terrific. Number two, we are actually supporting the people who come forth and share their personal pain. That is terrific because in the past we made them go away, shut up, or we shamed them. And number three, the ones who are actually committing the crimes are getting punishment. So I feel that it's a fantastic movement. And not just in the Me Too space, but in every space this should happen. We should put things on the table. We should deal with the facts. We shouldn't forget about them. Ideally, we deal with them on a timely basis. And then if someone is the violator should be punished for their violation. I think it's very healthy. I actually think it's a fantastic time for both men and women to move forward. The more CEOs lose their jobs over bad behavior, the more CEO jobs there will be open for you to go compete for.
Absolutely. It seems like it's an inflection point this past year and it's just increasing every day that the world wants a level playing field and it's coming faster and faster. You think that's going to continue?
I do, but I also think that we might be coming into certain areas that I'm actually very worried about. And that is this whole question of should men and women be going out to dinner on one-on-one at night in a professional environment, or should people opt out of cross-gender, dinner meetings or after dinner meetings or even meetings in corporate settings where it's just a one-on-one? That really worries me because when I think back to my 30-year career, almost every single dinner I had, it was just one person, not a group setting. Maybe I can name two that were with women. All of the others were with men. So if we start shunning dinner, one-on-one dinner with another woman or another man, I think that the opportunities for women to network and to get support from other colleagues is going to diminish in a very big way. So I very much worry about that. I worry about this movement making some men very nervous about spending time and mentoring and sponsoring younger women. And I do think that it is our place as women to come forth and say, listen, I really appreciate your support. I know exactly what your intent is. There's nothing lost on me. Don't worry, I don't misinterpret anything. So please keep supporting me. Please keep mentoring me. Please keep moving me forward in my career. That's very, very important to put on the table and be open about it, because I am afraid that some, especially middle-aged men, don't know how to deal with this situation.
Well, is that just an artifact that the Me Too movement is come on very strong and now people are just very afraid and over time I think they'll settle into a better place?
I don't know. Sometimes the pendulum's, the question is the pendulum going to start swinging in one direction or the other? It's definitely swinging right now, one direction. Can it go more extreme and scare men? I mean, even men I know very well, this one guy that I've worked with for 15 years, he said to me, hey, if I met you today, I would never hug you. And I said, what? He said, yes, I've been hugging you for 15 years, but if we just met, I would never hug you. And I think that's a pity. We're human beings. By the way, I also like being complimented on what I wear. And if I ever feel there's an innuendo that I don't like, I call it out.
So maybe the answer is it just needs to be more communication going on
Exactly.
as we go forward
Exactly.
as opposed to rules up front.
Exactly. I think we're human beings. We're not cookie cutter factory made devices. And we cannot put one rule for everybody. If you're from Brazil, you're much more likely, or from the Mediterranean like I am, you're much more likely to be physically affectionate. And that doesn't mean anything sexual. If you're from Hamburg, Germany, you probably won't be. So I think that we just need to understand where each one is coming from. We need to very much clearly articulate our intent. And if someone has intent that we feel that we don't like, we need to be very open about that as well and say, listen, I don't feel good about this. This doesn't feel right to me.
Very good. Well, your book, Power Up, How Smart Women Win in the New Economy, seems like it's getting a lot of buzz out there. Is there anything in there that we didn't cover that we should talk about?
Well, so I talk about a lot of different things. I talk about how do you get a promotion? How do you get a raise? How do you come back into the workforce if you've been gone for a while? How do you re-enter? There are nice stories from, like I said, not just my career, but 27 other women and their careers. And by the way, it doesn't matter that they're women, they might as well be men, because, men face the very same challenges. Yesterday, I gave a talk. At the end, this guy came up to me and he said, you told my story. Everything you said 100% applies to me. And I think that it's nice to acknowledge the fact we're all human and move away from polarizing. Men and women should not be polarized. We actually should be coming together, not falling apart.
All right. Sound like the answer in the end is just better communication all around. And you sound like your book is going to tell us a lot more about how to navigate some of these waters. I appreciate your taking time. Thank you so much for joining us, and hope to have you back to discuss this further.
Thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts.
Great. Thank you so much.